Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelove and this is Speedplay Netherlands number 20. We left off having created and just now renaming a couple client states. We build a large force up, another army of 40,000 men, as we have a massive amount of manpower for essentially the first time in our history. We've also got a very large coalition which is going to be a threat, as well as Muscovy, which we really need to get an alliance back with. We accidentally let the alliance slip. However, hopefully we'll be able to get it back soon. There's also a large revolt in Sweden, which we're able to hopefully take care of without any real concern, as we just have a massive amount of troops nearby. We also begin moving our armies south to hopefully deal with this Austrian-led coalition in some way or another. The best way will probably be to just declare war on one of Austria's allies in such a way that they get called in without calling in the rest of the coalition. Now, as we go ahead and do that, we first do manage to get our alliance back with Muscovy, which is fantastic news, and we ship our armies into position for this new war. We'll only be at war with 3 countries, so my plan is essentially, first of all, to just send a few colonists out, and then what we'll do is we will hopefully be able to get sieging forces in control of both the Papal State and Provence, and then we'll deal with the Austrians. We do send a few forces up, as we do have a very large group of forces, so I feel like this should be relatively safe. The Austrians do have 60,000 men, and for whatever reason we suddenly cannot get to Munich at all. It is just impossible for us to get to Munich, and we're stack wiped. Which, quite frankly, I think is a bit ridiculous. We do manage to get a lot of forces in to reinforce. While this happened, we lost a battle in Italy. Not a great start to this sort of campaign. Luckily, we did just build a couple groups of 40,000 men, so that will hopefully take the edge off of this serious setback in the very beginning. We are sieging out Provence entirely, and we'll hopefully be able to deal with the Papal armies in just a moment. Of course, the Austrians don't allow that to happen, and we face a very significant battle where we lose quite a few men, but do win the day. That's the most important bit. We do end up winning the day, and now we can hopefully reform our armies in such a way that we can defeat the Papal armies in the south. At first we were very seriously losing that battle with that army, but we did reinforce. At this point our armies are almost entirely artillery. It is a terrible mess. Our infantry just cannot survive and withstand these sorts of battles. It is pretty brutal. At this point, we're probably going to only make infantry armies for the foreseeable future and just tack them onto the existing forces, which are now almost entirely artillery based. We do raise a group of mercenaries to hopefully go ahead and support us, and we have a group of 20,000, 10,000 each are just infantry, pure and simple. They will go and reinforce our armies and hopefully balance out this amazing amount of artillery, which is just ridiculous. Now, I do kind of wonder where all these Papal armies are coming from. I don't realize that they have that territory at the very southern end of France. As soon as I do realize that, though, I do begin shipping the armies over to deal with it. Now, the Austrians at this point are essentially a non-entity. We did end up having to call in the Polish in order to support us, and they did a very great job. I'm not entirely sure where the Austrian army even is anymore. We discover Asia and find out that there are a lot of massive empires over there. And beyond that, we can now hopefully see what we can get in this peace deal. Ideally, we'll get Rome from the Papal State. We are Protestants, and that would be just a pretty amazing goal, as well as a decent amount of lands from Austria. For whatever reason, we find out that there would be a very awkward pathing to get through Austria. We managed to siege out their forts, though, so hopefully we'll be able to deal with this relatively quickly. And I also shift the color of the Italian flag just one bit up, so it looks a little less French blue. And at this point, the war is essentially won. We had a rather inauspicious start to the thing. Luckily, it ended up being relatively straightforward. I was just way too aggressive in the very beginning, and it cost us a huge amount of men. We went from having 111,000 manpower to having a manpower deficit. Although, it doesn't really matter, we're going to strip another layer of provinces off of Austria, which we will just directly incorporate into our country. We do have a revolt up in our northern provinces, but we'll be able to take care of that with relative ease. And at this point, the main concern is going to be that we will declare war on the next group of countries before they're able to do anything against it. We do manage to get all 3 of the Italian Papal State territories into our Italian client state. Now, unfortunately, our relation with France is terrible. We send them almost 2,000 ducats to just get a buffer. I don't want to risk losing our alliance with the French, as they are going to be a terrible foe, but there's really no better friend. That's vaguely a quote. I really messed it up. At any rate, we invade Naples. Aragon takes quite a bit of it, which is kind of upsetting. Although that does mean that we're able to get the remaining lands essentially for free. And since we did just give our Italian client state quite a bit of land, since we're not getting all of the boot of Naples, it will hopefully keep them from getting overextended. And just like that, we go ahead and integrate them, lowering our relations with the French even more so. It's a bit unfortunate. We've been improving relations with the French for as long as possible, so it's at 100 improved. We sent them a gift. It's still very low. I think about sending them subsidies, but deciding against it. Now, one way to stop this from being a problem with our French allies is to stop expanding, but quite frankly, we're too far. We've gone too far in this. We declare war on Bohemia. We're going to keep up this expansion route. The coalition begins to reform, however, it hasn't been threatening in the past. I don't quite think it will be now. Now we go ahead and just begin sieging out these Bohemian forts. We keep our armies very close together and only attempt to fight when we have a distinct advantage. We were very, very cocky with our invasion of Austria. Unfortunately, it appears we were also pretty cocky with our invasion of Bohemia, and we do end up losing a significant battle. Luckily, we have enough forces nearby that we are able to win the subsequent engagement, and we didn't get stack wiped, which is another plus. We build another group of mercenaries, as quite frankly, that's all we can get, and it's actually 30,000 men, which is very significant and rather strong. We bring our forces that aren't busy sieging to go defeat this Bohemian army. Unfortunately, they manage to defeat our client state, and we end up fighting a non-ideal battle. We do win it, though. And at this point, the war is essentially won. We go ahead and just directly annex Istra. I'm sorry if I terribly mispronounced that. And find out that it would be almost 300 to core, which is way more than I would like to. I may give them over to Italy at some point, although that would mean that we would lose our only mainland port to the Adriatic, and that's not exactly something I want to do. It's also a land that we cored, and I don't want to give up any lands that I've cored, as that seems like a waste of admin points. At any rate, we continue our war, now more or less secure. We have a small force up in the north against the Livonian Order, which should hopefully be able to convince them to give us 1 or 2 provinces. I don't really have any great goals against Livonians, as quite frankly I want to get out of this war as quickly as possible so we can go ahead and fight another. Now there are a series of revolts down in the provinces we just got from Austria. We send a large force, this time mainly armies from our client states, which really just goes to show how useful they are, as that is just something amazing and completely fantastic. We don't have any manpower, but our client states are going to be enough to hopefully keep pressing us forward. So really they are just a fantastic investment. And speaking of our client states, the plan for this war is to give as much land as possible to our Deutschland client state. I would directly take it, however, Bohemia has a national idea which gives about plus 50% coring cost, and I really don't want to deal with that. We're trying to conserve our admin points. I find out that we can make a peace deal for far over 100% overextension. I still don't want to core any of these lands myself, so we're probably going to make a separate client state in Bohemia. We do go ahead and peace out with the Livonian Order, and now we begin transferring provinces over to Deutschland. And those are all the provinces that they'll get. We'll leave the traditional Czech countryside to a new client state which we'll create. Unfortunately, I didn't consider that we won't be able to take this one province still being sieged, as we no longer have a way to core it. So we're going to have to just occupy it until we actually do siege the province out, and that's essentially going to be how long the war will last. Now, once this war is over, the big question is, what can we do next? Or mainly, what should we do next? The coalition against us is rather powerful. This peace deal, unfortunately not exactly what I had wanted, but we do manage to shuffle it around until we can get it at a perfect 100%. Unfortunately, our relations with the French are now -3, which means we're going to have to act very quickly if we want to preserve our alliance. First of all, we create a new client state in the Czech Republic as the Czech Republic. Unfortunately, it looks as though their flag isn't something that we can replicate. I go ahead and just make the closest thing I can, and more or less at random pick a color. I do attempt to go through and see if there is something more fitting. We're going to have to go with essentially a Polish flag. We go ahead and just pick the color, and here's the plan for the future. First of all these Czech lands given to our new Czech client state. Second of all, we're immediately going to declare war and call the French in on our side. That'll first give us a very quick boost to relations for being allies in a war. Now, I consider the options. If we declare on Milan, it will bring Austria in. However, we just fought a very successful war against Austria, so I'm not very afraid of them. We declare this war, and it leaves Aragon out so we can deal with them later. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see how this war goes. Hopefully I didn't overestimate myself.